Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tamika. Don't you wanna have fun? Fool around someone. You may or may not have noticed I have changed my channel name. So this should be live when you're watching this video, but I have decided to change my channel name to Tamika's Library, which is what my name is changed to on all my social media platforms. So TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of my accounts are under Tamika's Library. If you go to look for me literally anywhere, that's my handle. So I just decided I wanted everything to be cohesive and everything to work together. And honestly, I just prefer the name. Library of Tomes was just not very fitting for me anymore. When I started reading, like when I started this channel, wasn't really reading shorter books. I was reading long books. It was very, you know, it was a whole thing. I was very on this idea that I had to read long books, and though I do read long books sometimes, that's not all I read. So I've just changed my channel name to Tamika's Library. It fits me much better now, and I just am much happier with the channel. So yes, going forward, this is Tamika's Library, where I talk to you about all the bookish things going on in my life. Let's hop into my March wrap up. March was an interesting month. I did do some interesting reading in March. It was very... Hi Phoenix, you gonna keep doing that? So March was a very interesting month. Let me run through the beginning of the month really quickly, because the beginning of the month was really good, and then the second half of the month was just okay. So I read The Never King, I read Ruin of Roses, I read Where the Good Girls Go to Die, The Marionettes, Blackmailing His Bride, While She Sleeps, Nothing But Blackened Teeth, After the People Lights Have Gone Off, Our Kind of Cruelty, Rose and Blood Volume 1, Those Not So Sweet Boys Volume 2, Kakegurui Volume 1, and Itsubitsu. So that was my manga and like all my other reads for the first half of the month. I have an interesting breakdown because this is the first wrap up, and I want to say a year and a half, 2 years that I've not had a romance in the second half of the month. I don't know who we are, but we don't have a single romance to talk about. I had one that I was reading and I had almost finished, but I didn't finish it. So there's no romance to talk about. I have 1 thriller, 2 horror, and 3 volumes of manga to talk about. So let's talk about them. So first up, I have No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is a very popular thriller that I have heard a lot of things about. And this is one that I actually started, and I tried to read it physically, and I was not enjoying the reading experience. I just was very bored, and I just didn't really care about the characters. But essentially this one follows a heroine who ends up getting trapped at a rest area during a blizzard. She's trying to go home to see her mother, who has pancreatic cancer. She ends up discovering a girl in a cage in the back of a van. And this is essentially her story of her trying to figure out what's going on with this girl and trying to get her help and to take care of her. So we have a very interesting premise, a very interesting idea here, and it is honestly very, very gripping and very compelling. I ended up giving this one a 4-star because I was very invested the entire way through, and I think the majority of my issue when I first started reading this is I just wasn't invested in it physically. I wasn't enjoying the story reading it, but I was really enjoying it being told the story. So I thought that it was much better as a listening experience. So if you have not read this and you are interested in it, that's the way I recommend you go about reading it. Did I read this specifically so I could also watch the movie? Yes. Have I watched it yet? No. So then I also read 2 horror books in the second half of March, which I'm really leaning into horror, and I don't hate it. I'm not mad about it. I'm actually very happy about it because I know that you all know this. I love horror. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. Literally would love to just rewatch my favorite horror movies on repeat all the time. It's one of my favorite things. I have gotten to a point now where I am definitely a rewatcher of horror movies. They're like a comfort for me now. Like rewatching very specific ones, like all the Saw franchise and the Freddy vs. Jason and just the Jason movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, just the classics, Scream. Y'all know that I love Scream. I got to meet Matthew Lillard and Skeet, so I love horror, right? So I feel really good diving into horror. I want to talk about The Girl Next Door, which is a horror book that's based on a true story. It's based on a true crime case, and this book is so freaking hard to read. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely freaking loved this book. I listened to this audiobook with Ashley, so we did a buddy read. If you are new here, hi, I'm doing buddy reads with my friend Ashley. Ashley's from Ashley Reads. She is one of my favorite little beans on the entire world. I'm pretty sure she's older than me, so I don't know why I call her a little bean, but I love her like so freaking much. So when we started talking about doing horror buddy reads, because we both love horror and we both love, like, we talk about horror movies all the time. So like when we started talking about it, I was like, oh my god, I would love to. Like, maybe I can actually stick with buddy reads. I've been able to read so many good audiobooks, like so many good short horrors, because I'm reading them with Ashley, and it's been a very, very fun experience, and I've been enjoying myself so freaking much. Like, we've definitely slowed down than when we first started in this venture, but I am just having the time of my life. So The Girl Next Door is based off of a real life case where a girl goes to live with her extended family, and that extended family end up putting her in a basement and torturing her into the point where she dies. The real life story is about a girl who her parents sell her to some woman for child support. This woman's getting so much child support a month for her and her sister. And they're torturing the sister, and they're also torturing the girl whose name is actually Sylvia, and they're putting her in the basement, and they carve words into her, they torture her, they burn her, they mutilate this poor girl and destroy her, and they end up raping her, and like so many graphic things happen. And this is a depiction from the point of view of one of the boys that is not in on it, but not in on it. Like, he doesn't report what's going on to the parents, and he is very much just as much to blame as everyone else because he doesn't do anything about it. It becomes a game to all of them. This is a very hard book to read. It is really freaking hard to like sit through because it is disgusting, and it is so hard to imagine that someone could do this to like these kids, and that these kids joined in and helped with it, and that people could be so heartless to hurt someone the way that they hurt these girls. And it was such a dark and twisted story, and I loved every minute of it. And I hate that I loved it so much because it is based off a true story. This actually happened to someone, but at the same time, this is so powerful, and like, it's written really, really well. And I loved it. I just wish that it wasn't a real case, like it didn't actually happen. So the next horror book that I read was another buddy read with Ashley. Is anyone shocked? Because I'm definitely not. This is The Last Stare into Darkness. This is a anthology of short stories, and this one was just fine. I had a fun time reading this one. This one was just exactly what it was. It was just fun. I wish some of the stories would have been longer. I wish we could have got more out of some of them. I don't regret reading any of them, but they were all very forgettable. The ones that I really enjoyed were just not long enough. I wanted more from them, and it took me a minute to really realize that's what was happening in the beginning, because the first two stories kind of felt very meshed together. But yeah, it wasn't bad. I had a fun time. I don't regret the 2 hours I spent listening to the entirety of the audiobook, because I was at work and I wasn't doing anything else with my time. So, I mean, I was working, but like I had audiobook time that I could have. So I wasn't doing anything else. So I was like, you know, fine, I'm cool with this. So yeah, I didn't regret it, but I wouldn't read it again, and I really wouldn't recommend you read it either. Like, they weren't that great. Like, they were just okay. Now let's talk about the manga that I read, and this is going to be very, very easy for me because I read volume 4 of Pleasure and Corruption, which is one of my favorite manga series. I don't know if you all know this or not, but I love Pleasure and Corruption. It's essentially a BDSM story, but between high school students. So you kind of have to go in knowing that it's going to like kind of push your buttons just a little bit, but it is honestly so worth it. I really, really enjoyed the story, and I just love everything about it, and I love the way these characters interact with one another. I love how they develop relationships. You can never really see anything going on. It's definitely just like suggestive rather than like you actually seeing what's happening. And there's a lot of, I would say, fairly decent education on the kink community, on like the fact that you need to do a lot of research and you can like actually hurt people and you have to really be paying attention. So if you are gonna, you know, be someone who ties someone up, you have to be like really careful and be paying attention to all of their, you know, all of their body language and their signs so you can make sure you don't hurt them. I just really love this series and I cannot wait to continue it. I have to get volume 5 and volume 6 comes out later this year, and it's just, I love this series a lot. Then I also read volume 2 and 3, so 2 volumes of Kakegurui. This is the Compulsive Gambler series. As this was sold to me, this is the lesbian gambling series, but I am not going to sell it to you all that way because it is not lesbian gambling. It is very much gambling, but I did not see a damn lesbian, and I am still pissed about it because I was told I was getting gambling lesbians. And though I can definitely see the hints of the gay, like hints of the queer, the hints of the queerness in the book, no confirmed lesbians. I'm gonna continue reading it. I'm on volume 4, so I'll continue through it. I will let you all know when we get some lesbians. But I'm telling you, if I don't get a lesbian until like volume 13, I'm gonna be pissed because there's like 15 or 16 volumes of this. So yeah, but I like this. This is literally about a girl who goes to a gambling school. I don't know what else to tell you other than they gamble a lot. Like, it's literally about them gambling, and they gamble to the point of like, if they get into a certain amount of debt, they become like house pets, and these house pets are treated very, very, very poorly, and like it's a whole thing. You know, like dictates your entire life. It's wild, and I love it. Even without the lesbians, I love it, which is really hard because my entire personality is being gay and loving gay things. So that means that says a lot, honestly. So those are all of the books that I read in the second half of the month. If you've read any of these, let me know, and leave me some recommendations for some really good dark romance down in the comments, because I'm just dying for some good dark romance, and like, I'm ready for some, you know, because we may or may not have the dark romance readathon coming up. We may or may not have a video on Monday talking about the readathon again. Who knows? Leave me the emoji with the little sweat bead on his head down in the comments, and I will chat with y'all in the next one. Bye, everyone. Don't you wanna have fun? Don't you wanna have some fun? Yeah, his baby said that they don't got a future like that.